Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast where we're going to talk about ending 2020 with a grateful heart and finding something to celebrate about. So, if you were in my coaching group or follow me for business, you know that I am launching a course called Next Level that is trying to help a group of people, a group of women get to six figures in 2021. And I put a post in my coaching group the other day, and I was just kind of asking some of the women who I already coach, like where they're at and what they need and who's been super successful. And there have been a group of the women I coach who've had a really great 2020, like despite the pandemic, despite racial tensions, despite the mess of an election, despite stay-at-home orders and all the things, like despite they've had a really great year. There are others who are just have had a really tough year and they're struggling. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about how we are getting ready to, flip the calendar. And this is the time of year when a million influencers will start the set all your goals for 2021. And friends, let me tell you something. Like I used to do that. I used to do the same thing. And this is nothing like against goal setting. Okay. But the problem is people want to set all their goals and they don't want to include God in like, God, what do you want for me next year? So if you're a goal setter, I encourage you to ask the Lord, what do you want my goals to look like for next year? Because I can tell you this, they're much easier to attain when you've got, the Lord on your side. So as I was thinking about how we're going to start seeing all the influencers talking about, manifesting what you want next year and writing it down in your journal and setting big goals for yourself. And while that's all fine and dandy and lovely and all the things, I was thinking, you know what, 2020 is not over yet. And one of the things I think that we could do that would really serve us for next year is really trying to find some things that we can be grateful about for 2020. I know for a lot of you who are in business, 2020 may have felt really hard. Things may have just not gone as planned. Perhaps you didn't meet the revenue goals that you wanted to. Maybe that book didn't get written. Maybe that course didn't get planned out and launched. Maybe you had to let people go. Maybe you have a brick and mortar and you had to close your doors. Maybe you had to completely rethink and redo everything. And it was stinking painful. And I don't want to foo-foo that off. I want to just let you know that I may not see you personally, but I just want you to know I get it. I feel it deeply for my entrepreneurs. I do. There was no prototype for 2020. There was nothing that we could go back, in the last 50 years and be like, oh, yeah, this has happened to us before. So we know how to do this. There was no model for us to really go by. And so a lot of us were we just need to make it. We just need to keep our head above water. We just need to not fall back into bad habits. We just need to be able to figure out how to homeschool these kiddos, types of modes. You know what I mean? And I think that there's something to be said for making it. And so I just want to encourage those of you this morning who are like, okay, 2020 was a hot, stinking mess. My business went down the tubes. Revenue was horrible. I had to lay people off. I had to shut my store. I had to, whatever. I had to push pause for 6 months. Sis, I want you to give yourself some grace. I want you to give yourself some grace. We serve a graceful God. We do. And if he's our model and if he's willing to give us grace, why can't we give that same sort of grace to ourselves? And before we go rushing into 2021 with, all the bright eyes and bushy tails, I think it's so important that we figure out things that we can be super grateful for in 2020. And I have to remember this for myself. I lost half of my hair in 2020. If you have not read that whole story, you can go to jenniferallwood.com/hair loss. Actually, it's jenniferallwoodhome.com/hair loss. I put on 20 pounds, but my hair's coming back. I'm grateful about that. I need to finish up with that. I gained 20 pounds at the beginning of this virus because you know what? I was like, well, glory to God. If we're all going to be home, let's have pie. Ava baby, let me teach you how to make a homemade crust. And as we're going into 2021, do I wish that I had taken it off already? Of course I do. But I'm grateful we had food in the pantry. I'm grateful that I had time to make stuff with my kiddos. I want you to look for some wins in your life this year. Sometimes winning is just keeping everybody alive and happy. Moms, I'm talking to you in particular. Sometimes winning is just making sure that you're tending to the hearts of the ones that you're responsible for here on this side of heaven. Sometimes winning, I think, can look like not spiraling into a deep, dark hole of depression. For some of you, that was a win this year. And let me just tell you something, sis. That's a big one. Some of you tried something for the first time out of desperation. That's a win, sis. That's a win. Some of you pivoted and maybe you had to shut your brick and mortar, but you like totally heard me in your head and you're like, but I've got the online thing going. Girlfriend, that's a win. That is a win. And so I want you to look really hard for your wins right now. I know that Thanksgiving was hard for our family. Ava baby turned 13 on Thanksgiving Day. We were hoping to spend the day with friends and family. We had some friends who were under the weather, and we had family that, were just not comfortable gathering. And I think the same thing is probably going to be true for Christmas. And so there's this part of me that's already like setting myself up for disappointment. And I've got to rethink that. And I want you to rethink that too. No, it's not probably going to be like any other Christmas we've had and any other end of the year that we've ever had. I was getting some ads the other day for like New Year's Eve outfits. And I'm like, where do they think people are going to wear these sequin dresses? I mean, I want to be there. But, so I think as we wind down here, it's tempting to go, crap, this is just a mess. This is just a mess. And instead, and I'm including myself in this, I want to like reframe how I'm looking at it in my brain and be like, you know what? We survived this year. We did it. We made it. We made it. We could have lost our cool on social media. We didn't. We could have ended relationships over a difference of political opinions. We didn't. We could have folded the business entirely, but we didn't. We could have let our kids' grades fall completely behind because we weren't making their education a priority when they really needed us to, but we didn't. We didn't. And those are wins too. Sometimes wins are not only in the checkbook. They just aren't. They just aren't. And so I want you to look as we finish up 2020 here for the things that you won at this year. And I want you to be so grateful. Listen, friend, that grateful heart is a breeding ground for miracles. And if you're like, I need 2021 to be so different, like we've got to get a miracle up in here, like start with being super grateful for 2020. For real. Start to be super grateful for the blessings that God did give us in 2020, for the protection that he did extend to us in 2020, for the grace and mercy that was ours to have in 2020, for the peace in our hearts and our homes, for the roof over our head and the food on our table. And while it all may look different and feel hard and we wish that it was something else, it is what it is, what it is. And so listen, friends, I'm like speaking and preaching to myself here. I'm looking for my own wins and I want you to do the same because they are there. And before we even like pivot into setting all of our goals for 2021, let's be super grateful for what we had in 2020. I hope that encourages you today. If it does, will you send me a DM on Instagram, or better yet, recommend this podcast to a friend and tag me on your Instagram post. It'd be a blessing to me. All right, my friend, we're all going to make it. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.